So we're into the final segment of the day, and we're really excited. I can feel the energy of this final session. So just to start, a bit of an introduction here. I've been in the banking sector for the last, it's almost 20 years, believe it or not. And in that time, I've only had one female boss. How many people in this room actually have a male boss today? That is over 50%. Men have critical roles to play in owning the diversity agenda, both in two ways. One is encouraging diversity, the second is dealing with diversity. We've talked about the importance of men and women working together as equals, but recognizing some of our differences. And it's not just accepting those differences, but it's about welcoming them. But it's really important that we understand the male perspective. I have great pleasure in welcoming our next guest to the stage. He's our first male speaker in the history of women in data, and he is someone that has worked it out. He's been nominated as Diversity Leader in Scandinavia. He describes himself as a father of two, a passionate skier, and a numbers guy. He is an inspirational CEO. He's led companies to outperform against market expectations. He's doubled the share price of his last company. He's achieved diversity stats that we could only dream of. In his last role, he achieved 53% of women around his leadership table. He's delivered double-digit growth, but he also creates an environment where it thrives in terms of the atmosphere and the culture that's created for his people. So I have great pleasure in welcoming the CEO of Ikano Bank, Mr. Håkan Nyberg. So Håkan, it's absolutely amazing to be sat next to you as my previous ex-boss. What's it like being in a room with 450 women?
Amazing, truly amazing. Thanks for having me, Peach.
Thank you. So, Håkan, when you left Entercard, and I remember that day because it was quite sad for me, I lost my boss. You then started your role at Nordnet, and I remember talking to you in your first week there. And I said, how's it going? And you went, yeah, it's good. I'm really excited. But there's one problem. And I was like, I wonder what he's going to say. The commercial business isn't good enough and this and that. And what you said to me, Håkan, is, I need to sort out my leadership team. They're full of men and I need some women on it. So Håkan, talk us through that. Why did it matter to you?
So for me, it's super simple. I mean, diversity make better decisions build better businesses, and better businesses deliver better profit, right? So it's super simple logic there, right? And then I met the leadership team in Nordnet, 4 people, 1 woman, right? 4 Swedes in a Nordic business, and that really didn't make sense. So I did the first week. I kind of brought up the country managers, and that created some diversity. I at least got a Finn or a Dane and a Norwegian guy on board, right? So I started out that. And then, but you can't really kind of discriminate in either direction. So you take when you do structural change, you take that opportunity to actually recruit for equality.
And so, when you decided that you wanted to make this change with the leadership team, what were some of the barriers or challenges? How did you convince the board that this was the right way forward? Were there some difficult conversations you had to have?
No, truly, I mean, the board, I didn't ask them. So, I told them that I'm going to do it, right? Because I believe in it, and they didn't. They left me alone, actually. So I went ahead and did it. But then, afterwards, they were quite proud. And then they kind of boasted and bragged about being an equal management team or executive committee.
Amazing. So, you know, as you've been, you know, working all of this out and interviewing a lot of people, from my experience when I've interviewed, you know, for a role and I'm looking at candidates and then I get to the interview stage, if I find someone that I'm looking for 10 qualities, I get someone that has 8 of them and it's a guy and he's like, it's 8 qualities and it's a female, she's saying to me, I'm not quite ready. Whereas if it's a guy, he's got 2 of those 10 qualities and he's saying, I'm so up for the job. I mean, is that something you recognize when you've been doing it?
Indeed. So, and to David's point, I mean, you need, when you write ads, you need to think about how you design them and the language in it. And now I will go and buy a robot that can help me with it, because then it wouldn't be a big effort, right? But the other thing is that you need to be very proactive. You can't just put out an ad and wait for applications, because then you get that kind of distribution, right, that you talked about. So you need to be proactive in making sure that the candidate pool has enough diversity, right? And you need to do a lot of other things. You need to build your employee brand and charge that with diversity. And it helps if you have role models in your management team, right? That is a big help. So you can put some effort in getting the first woman in the executive committee. That helps.
So, you know, you're a CEO, and so you've got all functions reporting into you: marketing, sales, finance, analytics. You know, what are some of the things that you've seen that women do that don't help us?
Well, nothing really unhelpful, but what I think is that you can be better at helping out each other, right? To the point, I think women could be much better in like promoting and sponsoring each other. And I guess this is a golden opportunity, this event, to actually build those networks and use those networks to kind of help yourself out, so to speak.
And it's a really interesting point, because I remember when I was growing up, you know, through my career, I used to see other women as competitors, and actually they're not the competitors. These are the people we should be helping. So I really like your advice, because it's something we should actually all take with us in this room. So you were my boss when I took my first C-suite level role, my first ExCo role.
Yeah.
As when I was credit risk director over in Entercard in Scandinavia. And you were a great boss, so I have to say that, of course, don't I? But I can't remember you, Håkan, encouraging me as a woman. So you encouraged me in many different ways, but the dialogue on, you know, gender diversity and, you know, really pushing me to aim for the you know, not being hit by the glass ceiling. So, you know, how has your thinking evolved in this subject over the years as you've kind of moved into these CEO roles?
It's good to hear that at least I kind of encouraged you as an individual, right? Thanks, because I tried to do that, right? But at that point in time, I didn't talk so much about diversity and gender equality, but I thought seriously about it, right? And you remember when I did things as well. You know, I shuffled around the country managers, and that created opportunity to actually build more gender diversity in the team, right? But I was quite immature in my thinking, and so I was tactical. Let's get a team together that works, right, and could fulfill the business plan. Now I think more strategically, so build the right capabilities, build the kind of employer brand that actually kind of beams diversity, right? So I try to think more strategically.
Good to see.
Yeah.
So, you know, I shared this statistic earlier of, you know, my career in banking. I've had one female boss. You know, clearly men do have critical roles, and it's important, you know, we understand the perspective. You know, what's your view on this? Are men doing enough?
No, it sucks, right? And you and I and all of us need to work hard to actually change that. That's my simple view on it, if it makes sense.
And so, are we making a mistake by not inviting men to this room? And before you answer that,
yeah.
we may or may not agree with you.
Okay. No, I truly don't think so. In this setting, I think you have better possibilities to actually create your own networks that you can actually use to promote and sponsor each other's. If you were about to kind of educate the male population on kind of gender equality, that could be done in the boardroom or the C-suite, right? In a better way.
Okay, interesting. So your wife, Lisa, is also a CEO.
Yes.
And here she is on screen.
Of a bank.
Of a bank in Sweden called Collector Bank, which is a digital bank. So, you know, clearly an amazingly successful couple. But in her CEO role, what does she bring to that role that you don't bring to it as a man?
Well, she's obviously role modeling female leadership in a financial services industry which is male dominated. And actually her bank is listed on the Stockholm Stock Exchange, of which only 6% of the companies have female CEOs, right? So she's a role model, I'm not, right? So it's as simple as that. But it's cooler if I am allowed to brag a little bit. So there are 2 companies on the Stockholm Stock Exchange which has a female CEO and a female chairperson. And one of them is the company she runs, right? So not only role modeling herself, but also the company, which is quite cool.
So do you think Lisa Nyberg would agree with Håkan's answer there? Do we? Yes, no? So should we find out what she answered to that same question? Let's play the video.
Oh, really? This is I have no clue, right?
Hi, everybody. I hope you have had a great day so far. Hi, Payal. Are you satisfied? Good. Hi, darling.
Hi, darling.
I will not ask you, because I know that you always over-deliver. My name is Lisa Nyberg, and I'm married to Håkan. And Payal sent me 2 questions, and the first one was, what kind of qualities do I bring into my CEO role that Håkan doesn't? And I think in many ways we are acting quite the same, because we share the same values. But when I've been thinking of this, I perhaps could be like my management and leadership start from an EQ perspective, because I love to talk and I love to communicate and I love to socialize with people and my employees. And Håkan's leadership and management start from an IQ perspective, and he has learned to love, to talk and communicate with his employees.
Oh, fantastic. You can get me back later.
Yeah, I will.
So Lisa, I guess, has already said I asked her a second question. So the second question, Håkan, and now that you know this is a test.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've talked a little bit around, you know, supporting each other in our roles. How do you support your wife in your role as a husband?
So I think we support each other. So we talk leadership at the kitchen table. We whine over financial supervisor authorities and regulations, so we can kind of vent that. Now, actually, 25 years ago, I was the one proposing that we should get kids, right? And Lisa said, okay, so we do it on one condition, and that is we split 50-50 with nanometer precision on everything that we need to do, right? And we have actually been able to do that, so for 25 years. So we supported each other there as well, right? But I guess she's a real kind of fire soul when it comes to gender equality in business. And she is sponsoring, not mentoring, but she's sponsoring 4 female talent, right, apart from her CEO role. So I think she would think I'm supporting her being here.
Oh, that's nice. So let's find out what Lisa said.
The second question was, how has Håkan supported me in my career as my husband? And I think, perhaps, sorry Payal, but the right question is, how has we supported each other? Because when you are two CEOs in the family, you have to support each other. And we have a very equal relationship. The one who has the time change the tires on the car, and the one who come home first in the evening, buy the food and cook the dinner. So we are equal and we support each other, and that is how it must be when you are two CEOs in the family. And darling, I hope you will have the right answers to those two questions. Love you. Bye bye.
Oh, it's great. It's great. So, of course, you're Swedish, Håkan. When I look at Sweden and Scandinavia, you're great innovators. You've invented IKEA, Skype, Spotify. Your role models in the diversity agenda, we talked about that a little bit earlier today. You're at 33% in terms of, women on boards versus our 27.5% in the UK. So you truly are role models. And one of the things when I lived in Scandinavia, and I spent 7 years there, was the paternity and maternity leave. It's 18 months and it's 50-50 between the man and the woman. What can we learn from this in the UK, Håkan?
I need to comment on the stats, right? So, okay, on board level, right? But on CEO level, on listed companies, 6% women, right? Of those companies who have female CEOs, 43% in the management team, right? Of the remaining 94% of companies, 80% in the management team are men, right? So it's not that kind of equal on that level. On board level, fine, right? So we have ways to go, right? And I'm not sure, I would be a bit provocative now. So yes, we have super generous parental leave things, but and distributed like equally among the partners, right? But it's still the case that the woman takes the majority of that, right? And stays home longer, right? And then I think you're falling behind in your career and your salary development, right? And next kid, so the man earns more, right? So it's natural for the woman, again, to stay home for financial reasons. So I think, I'm not sure that system is really helping out women, right? It could be a trap instead.
Okay, interesting.
And the other thing, so if I can say, I also think I've seen doing part-time job is also a trap, right? You end up like not being perceived, not really promoting your career, right? And then you get 75% of the salary, but do 100% of the work, right? Still. It's not uncommon, I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. So you've just started a new CEO role, and you've got teams in 9 different countries. What are some of the trends that you've seen in diversity across those 9 countries?
Well, I've been in the role 10 weeks, so we haven't really developed. So I haven't had time to kind of develop the diversity strategy yet, but I've actually traveled around all countries. Russia remains next week, but so UK, my UK team, I had dinner with them like a couple of weeks ago, and there were like only males, white males in the 40s, right? The one woman on the management team, she was home, I think ill, but it might have been the kids were ill, right? Which was not good. So UK not in good shape, and Sweden slightly better, and Germany better, right? And the 2 countries you would expect to be worst, namely Finland and Russia, they are the best in class. It might be a correlation that the country managers in Finland and Russia are, guess, women, yes. So there might be a correlation there.
Okay. So during the day today, we've talked a little bit around the importance of mentoring. But I'm beginning to feel that, you know, if we were in a Men in Data conference, we wouldn't have been talking about mentoring. We'd just be, you know, talking about just get on with it and crack on. So I'm beginning to get the feeling that women can be over-mentored but under-sponsored. You know, what's your advice here to the people in this room of how we turn our mentors into sponsors?
I saw a tweet the other day, I can't remember from whom, but it said it's better to have a good boss in a not so good company than have a bad boss in a good company, right? So I think, and that is a trick, I think, to choose the right boss who could potentially be your sponsor, but if not, could help out to get a mentor, but rather a sponsor who could actually kind of very concretely help with the career steps. Right? So that would be choose the right boss. Would that
Good
make
advice,
sense?
yeah. So, you know, I guess just finishing up, Håkan, you've got so much experience, you know, you've got so many stories to tell, but for the people in this room, you know, what are the 3 pieces of advice that you'd want to leave everyone with today?
So, talk to your partner and agree on 50-50 career opportunities and split the responsibilities so you don't end up so that's the first one. I'll keep it short. The other one, choose the right boss, right? And a trick there is do the research not only on the boss but his or her partner to see are they gender equal in their private lives, right?
A game of Mr. and Mrs. for everybody.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, there are so many kind of people talking about gender equality in my role, and then when you look at their private lives, it's a completely different story, right? And you wouldn't like to choose one of those. And the third one would be kind of get a mentor, or rather a sponsor, right? Make sure rather a sponsor. So 3 advices.
So Håkan, you know, I introduced you as a truly inspirational CEO, and you know, it's just fantastic to hear the stories, but also to hear from your wife, because this is truly an authentic leader. So, you know, I think one of my takeaways from today that I think is really important from what you've said, which I love what you said of, you didn't ask your board for permission. And that is such a trait that men do, whereas women tend to ask for permission, and it's better to just do it and ask for forgiveness, I think is a really important story of, you know, what Håkan's achieved and how he's done it. So I'm sure you're going to join me in a huge round of applause to Håkan.